in our local area, in Charlcombe Valley, uh, the ancestral breeding site for toads, frogs, and newts is the Charlcombe Lake, which lies at the bottom of the valley. This is where they go to breed, and they every year in the period from the beginning of January till possibly the end of March is when they migrate from the top of the valley down the valley to their breeding site. And usually this would be a relatively easy journey that they'd have to make. But of course, there now is Charlcombe Lane, which runs directly across the valley, which is a very busy road that I live on. There's a lot of traffic from school traffic during the day, connecting Lark Hall at one end up to Fairfield Park. And so there's a lot it's a very busy road that we always, even humans have to be careful of most of the time. But during this period of their migration, which is around this period we're in now, so this is the active season, they cross in very large numbers down the valley, and they have to cross the road.
So we're losing a lot of toads in the process, are we?
Indeed, there's very high mortality rates of, well, there used to be very high mortality rates of toads up until Charlcombe Toad Rescue was founded in 2003. So I think it's in its 19th year now. A small group of volunteers who come out during this period to help the toads and frogs cross the road. So on usually quite late in the night, in perfect conditions, which are wet and quite warm. Those are the two conditions that they usually need to cross in large numbers. They come from one side of the lane, and they must cross over it to get to the other side. And a rather the large obstacle, apart from the cars, of course, is that there are several high walls and houses that block their way, which they often get stuck on and sometimes turn around and are stuck and at the mercy of the cars. And that's where we come in to help make sure they can be picked up and safely deposited.
Now, that must be quite a dangerous operation for you. If you're out there at night with cars whizzing along the lane, how are you protecting yourselves?
So there are about 40 volunteers. Now we have about 40 volunteers. We're all equipped with safety gear of high-vis jackets, nice bright green, luminescent. We all must carry torches, so they're very bright, not only for spotting the toads and the newts, which are particularly small, but also to help motorists see us on the lane. And we usually have to have at least a buddy system, 2 people out there at a time. Of course, larger groups have been difficult to coordinate now because of COVID-19. But we'll make sure that we're buddied up at least when we're walking around, so we can be seen and make sure that we're all accounted for.
Well, that's good to know that you guys are safe. But how easy is it to pick up a toad or a frog or a newt and take it across the road? I take it they can, on occasion, be quite reluctant to be helped. How do you physically do it?
So yes, I found it quite difficult when I began to pick them up. I started off by using gloves, but they can be quite difficult to use. So I just take them by bare hand now. I have to say that the newts are very small. They do move very quickly. They do look like sticks, which is quite difficult to see them. So they're not too much of a problem. They've got to be carefully handled though. Toads are not very mobile. They're quite large, and they tend to walk on their 4 legs, so they're quite easy to pick up. But by far the most difficult has to be frogs. They're much smoother. They're much more wet and slimy, as some people would like to call them, and much more agile. They indeed do jump quite enthusiastically. So I've tried to develop several different tactics over the years. And I think my favorite one has to be scooping underneath, placing one hand over, and then we put them in a bucket. And we take them up the road to a safe area where they can be let out.
It strikes me that it's not the sort of job that everybody would enjoy if they're a bit slimy and sticky.
Indeed, yes. I have to admit, there's a few of us who are quite keen on doing it, me being one of them, because I've been doing it for quite a while now. I think this is my 9th year. But indeed, there are, of course, volunteers can just come out and be spotters, as we call them. So they can be carrying the torches and the buckets. And they
There's
can
one.
be contributing just as much.
There's another
Indeed,
one.
yes.
Guy,
Especially people with
sorry to interrupt you. How did you get involved?
So I moved onto Charlcombe Lane 9 years ago, 2012. Seems like an age ago, because my family, my grandfather, my grandmother lived here. My dad grew up in this same house we live in now. We moved back to the area. I had no idea about the toad and frog migration, but I heard about it from my grandparents who lived here, and they were doing it way back in the 1960s, I think.
It's a family tradition.
Indeed. And of course, when it's on your doorstep, you know, and you see other people going out who may not necessarily live on the lane, you think, well, I kind of have a duty to be going out and helping them. And it was never really an inconvenience for me. I always found it fascinating, and my enjoyment grew over the years. So yeah, I got involved going out every few nights when I was younger. That grew into giving a bit more of my time. But of course, over the years, schoolwork has also had to factor in. But I've still managed to keep it up, thankfully.
You must be one of the younger members of the group.
Yes, I am. Yeah. So I think I've been the youngest for a while now, but I've been hoping to change that. I've been hoping to get younger people involved. So I've been doing my part to encourage some scout groups. I've done a few talks at my school as well, because once people found out about it, they were intrigued, and I thought it would be great to get an interest going there. And generally kind of getting the message out that young people might find it enjoyable as well. And thankfully, we have seen younger people join us in the last few years.
That's good to know. And of course, the toad migration must be happening at different locations all over Baines, all over the area. Well, indeed, all over the United Kingdom and elsewhere. If anybody is interested in getting involved in this sort of work, what do you suggest they do? You know, what sort of contacts are there?
Well, yes, indeed, there are several toad rescue groups I know from around the country, and I know them through a network organization called Frog Life, which coordinates, I think they're called Toad on the Roads, which are the different patrols around the country. And we've managed to stay in contact with other toad rescue groups through them. So that's Frog Life, the organization, and they help to coordinate and collect all the data on amphibians in the UK.
And they have a website?
They do, and they also have a social media, which on, I think, both Facebook and Twitter on Frog Life. And we also have our own Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I run the Instagram, Instagram account. And that's been helping to get a lot more people involved and get the word out. So if people are interested, they can go and give us a follow and keep up to date with what we're doing. For us as an organisation in Charlcombe this year, of course, we're not looking for any more volunteers given COVID-19 restrictions, which is very unfortunate. But if people were involved, were keen to get involved, then we'd be happy to have them next year when we really get going again and we can start coordinating more people.
Guy, thank you very much.